Let's go. Good afternoon, everyone. The hour of 2 o'clock having long since passed us. We'd like to start the Appropriations Committee for Elementary and Secondary Education. So I would like to call to order the Appropriations Committee for Elementary and Secondary Education. With that, I ask the clerk to call the roll.
Davis.
Present.
Ortiz. Here. Wilhauer. Favor-Dias. Here. Freeze. Here. Hernandez. Hirschauer. McLaughlin. Yang Rohr. Here. With that, Mr. Chair, there are 7 members present.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. With 7 members present, we do have a quorum, but because today is just subject matter testimony only, quorum is not necessary for us to proceed. So with that, we would like to continue our appropriations hearing on behalf of state agencies and invite to the table representatives from the Illinois State Board of Education. Great, thank you. So please just introduce yourself before you speak. And with that, Dr. Sanders, in your hands, please proceed.
Thank you, Chair Davis, Vice Chair Ortiz, and Spokesperson Wilhauer, and members of the committee. If we've not already met, my name is Dr. Tony Sanders, and I'm honored to serve as the State Superintendent of Education. Joining me here at the dais at this moment in time, we have Dr. Stephen Isoya, the Chairman of the State Board of Education, and Dr. Patricia Nugent, the Chair of our Finance Committee of the Board of Education. And momentarily, you'll hear from Dr. Matthew Seaton, our Chief Financial Officer, and Dr. Kamako Patterson, our Chief of Staff. It is a pleasure for us to be able to present our FY27 budget recommendation. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Chair Isoya to make a few opening remarks.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Stephen Isoya, the Chair of the Illinois State Board of Education, and thank you for inviting ISB to share our fiscal year 2027 budget recommendation. We are grateful for your continued commitment to Illinois students, educators, and communities. At the heart of this proposal is evidence-based funding. Roughly 75% of the requested increase, $350 million, is dedicated to EBF because it remains district's top priority and the state's most effective tool for addressing inequity. After 9 years of investment, the number of districts at or above 90% adequacy has grown from 194 to 313, and outcomes show real progress. Graduation rates are at a 15-year high, achievement gaps are narrowing, student growth exceeds pre-pandemic levels, and the Illinois 8th graders now outperform national averages in reading and math. We also propose increases for mandated categorical programs to maintain critical services like transportation and special education, as well as investments in career and technical education and the Teacher Vacancy Grant Program, which is helping districts recruit and retain educators. These recommendations reflect careful prioritization and are aligned with ISB's strategic plan. Your continued support will help sustain this progress. And now I'll turn it over to the board's Finance and Audit Subcommittee Chair, Dr. Patricia Nugent, to provide you with some background about our budget development process. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction, Steve. Good morning. I guess it's afternoon. I'm following Steve's reading from the program. Sorry. My name is Dr. Patricia Nugent, and I am the chair of the Finance and Audit Committee for the State Board of Education. Just some background information as far as how we got to where we're at right now. The budget request you will hear today reflects extensive collaboration with educators, administrators, students, parents, and partners across Illinois. At ISBE, transparency and stakeholder input guide our work. Last fall, we held public budget hearings and received more than 900 funding requests, totaling nearly $750 million. That level of engagement reflects a strong commitment of communities across the state and helps ensure our recommendations address real needs. Our goal is to support 851 diverse school districts serving communities with unique challenges and opportunities. The most common requests focused on transportation, evidence-based funding, affinity groups, career and tech education, and truant alternative and optional education. Aligned with ISBE's strategic plan, these recommendations advance academic progress, safe learning environments, and a strong educator force. We are grateful to all stakeholders whose participation reflects a shared belief that investing in public education strengthens Illinois. With that, I'll turn it back over to Dr. Sanders.
Thank you, Dr. Nugent. Now joining me at the dais, you'll have, again, Dr. Matt Seaton, our Chief Financial Officer, as well as Dr. Kamako Patterson, our Chief of Staff. As they join, let me start off by walking you through the overarching priorities of the board's proposal. I'm very proud of our agency's strategic plan and the budget proposal that we continue to align to lead the nation in K through 12 public education. The Illinois State Board of Education recommends a general funds investment in public education of approximately $10.9 billion in fiscal year 2027, reflecting a decrease of $278.5 million. This reduction is driven primarily by the transition of the Early Childhood Block Grant to the Illinois Department of Early Childhood. While accounting for that shift, the recommendation represents a net increase of approximately $469.7 million in education funding. As Dr. Isoya said, we are very conscious of the state's tight fiscal environment, and so we prioritized the most crucial funding streams and those investments that will have the most direct impact on student success. ISBE's efforts remain guided by our strategic plan, which the board adopted in January of 2024. ISBE's proposed budget focuses on investments that align with three overarching budget goals. One, to ensure that each student increases their knowledge, skills, and opportunities each year. Two, to equip all schools with the necessary resources to provide safe, healthy, and welcoming learning environments. And three, to prepare, support, and celebrate our educators. On our next slide, you will see our primary budget request, which is for evidence-based funding. Evidence-based funding remains the principal funding source for Illinois schools. In fiscal year 2027, ISBE recommends an increase of $350 million, which includes $300 million for distribution in tier funding to school districts, up to $50 million for the property tax relief grant as required by statute. As Dr. Isoya said in his opening remarks, the past 9 years of EVF investments have led to tremendous impacts on the equity and adequacy in funding of Illinois schools. ABF has transformed districts for the better, and most likely the reason why our pandemic recovery has been faster and stronger than other states, because school districts have been able to develop and invest in multi-year plans that truly drive school improvement. Prior to the pandemic, they were able to shore up staffing, purchase high-quality curriculum materials, invest in professional development for teachers, and invest in technology that was so needed at that time. One of the most valuable impacts of EBF has not just been the increase in equity and adequacy, but also in stability. Under the current funding structure, districts can count on the state for stability, predictability, and sustainability in school funding, which has made a key difference for districts' ability to plan and budget. With that, I'll turn it to Dr. Seaton to continue on with our request for mandated categoricals.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Matt Seaton. I serve as the Chief Financial Officer with State Board of Education. As far as our mandated categorical line items go, ISBE is recommending an increase of approximately $151.5 million for mandated categorical line items, which provide for specific needs not accounted for in the evidence-based calculations. These are costs that districts have to cover regardless of whether the costs are reimbursed by the state. As with busing, schools cannot educate students until they arrive at the building. A historical lack of sufficient funding for MCATs has resulted in proration for the district's MCAT claims. Additionally, costs have increased significantly for school districts, especially for items like transportation. ISBE would recommend we fully fund the 2 orphanage lines for special education and regular tuition, as required by law, that we fund the special education private and public facility tuition line item at the same proration levels for FY26, which is currently at 63%. We would fund the regular vocational transportation line item at the same prorated levels as current year, which is currently 76%. And then we would fund the special ed transportation line item at the same proration level as currently, which is 60%. We would also recommend that that we fund the Illinois free lunch and breakfast line item at the same proration level as current, which is 32%. In sum, although it is a sizable increase, it is very much a maintenance request to maintain the current estimated proration levels for our districts. On the next two slides, you'll see a visual representation of our two transportation MCATs in particular. And the first here is for regular and vocational education transportation. This chart compares the level of funding required to fully reimburse regular and vocational transportation costs with the actual appropriations provided over time. In FY26, the appropriation was approximately $342 million, while the amount needed for full reimbursement was closer to $523 million, creating a gap of about $181 million. As transportation costs have increased, appropriations have grown more slowly, which has resulted in the widening gap between costs and available funding. When MCAT funding remains flat in an environment of rising costs, districts effectively receive a lower percentage of reimbursement for their eligible claims. This dynamic shifts a greater share of the transportation costs to local districts, even though the underlying service levels have not changed. Maintaining current proration levels requires appropriations to keep pace with at least the cost of growth, rather than remaining level year over year. Similarly, on the next slide, this chart shows the growth in special education transportation costs as compared to the appropriations available for those reimbursements. Unlike other transportation services, special ed transportation is driven by IEPs and the student needs and federally required services, which limits the district's ability to control or reduce these costs. In FY26, the appropriation was approximately $467 million, while the amount needed for full reimbursement was about $769 million, creating a gap of about $302 million. Over time, costs have increased significantly faster than appropriations, resulting in large and persistent gap between eligible claims and the available funding. This pressure is particularly more evident for districts serving students with more intensive or specialized transportation needs. Moving to the next slide, we will highlight our career and technical education request. Career and tech ed programs serve approximately 290,000 high school students, or about 49% of all high school students throughout the state, preparing them for high skill, high wage, and in-demand careers. CTE also provides career exploration opportunities for elementary students. CTE participation has grown every year since 2017. Even so, CTE programs have not grown or increased enough to meet the needs of the industry, and ISB recommends continued investment in this space to meet this demand. For FY27, ISB is recommending an increase of $5.93 million for CTE programs. This increase reflects ISB's commitment to equity by continuing to phase in the new funding formula. The formula resulted from a data-informed, stakeholder-driven engaged process that uses a multiplier based on EBF final percentage of adequacy to focus increased funding on districts with the greatest fiscal needs. It incentivizes program quality by giving a higher rate multiplier to CTE concentrators. And concentrators are students who take more than one class in CTE in a single subject area. The FY26 allocation will continue to use the first step of the phase-in, first used in FY25, but will also hold harmless all recipients, meaning that no one will lose funding over FY26. Our CTE funding recommendation also maintains the $5 million allocation for the CTE Education Career Pathways Program. The new funding formula will be completely phased in after the final step increase in FY27, with FY28 allocations being calculated at 100% using the new formula. At this time, I will pass it to Dr. Patterson, who will talk about teacher vacancy grant.
Thank you. Good afternoon, members. Illinois has made significant investments in retaining and recruiting educators. Oh, forgive me. Dr. Kamako Patterson, Chief of Staff for the Illinois State Board of Education. Good afternoon, members. I'm so sorry, I just want to jump in. Illinois continues to make significant investments in retaining and recruiting educators, and these efforts continue to result in a stronger teacher workforce. We have seen year-over-year increases in the number of teachers in the profession ever since FY 2018, when evidence-based funding was enacted. New teachers for the 24-25 school year, we have seen an increase of 12,434. And we have retained over 15,000 teachers from 2023 to 2025. But as the demand for teachers has also grown, the supply has not kept pace. Districts do not experience the teacher shortage equally. 80% of the unfilled positions are concentrated in 20% of districts, urban and rural districts, as opposed to suburban, and districts serving high proportions of low-income students bear the brunt of the teacher shortage. We also have a need for greater diversity in the profession and particular shortages in special education and bilingual education. One of our primary strategies for combating the teacher shortage is our teacher vacancy grant, funded with $30 million in state funding for FY 2026. The grant targets those 170 districts with the greatest shortages to provide them with the resources they need to solve local challenges to recruitment and retention and remove barriers preventing aspiring educators from pursuing the call to teach. Through this very flexible grant, districts are using multi-pronged, evidence-based approaches or solutions that are well aligned to the causes of shortages. Funds have allowed districts to find creative and sustainable solutions to fill vacant positions and retain teachers. The continuing $30 million appropriation for the teacher vacancy grant in FY 27 would fund these same 170 districts and transition the program from a pilot to a permanent initiative, ensuring sustained progress toward eliminating teacher shortages and advancing equity for Illinois students. We have a partnership with iWork to continually evaluate the effectiveness of the program and sharing out best practices as part of that strategy. I'd like to give you just some brief information on two districts. The first district is La Harpe, CSD 347, which is a rural district. La Harpe Community School District is a small, close-knit pre-K-8 public school district located in the rural heart of Western Illinois, positioned near the Mississippi River and not far from the Iowa border. La Harpe serves approximately 187 students with a dedicated team of around 17 full-time educators. The reduction in teacher vacancies in just year one was 62.5%. And it represents real classrooms now led by qualified educators. This improvement didn't happen by chance. It reflects the intentional alignment of strategies and solutions. Rural districts often face distinct barriers, geographic isolation, limited applicant pools, and fewer resources. Achieving this level of progress is, in such a context, demonstrates with the right support and flexibilities how rural districts can thrive. Zion ESD 6 is an urban district. It's located in northeastern Illinois near the Wisconsin border along Lake Michigan, serving over 2,000 pre-K through grade 8 students in the Zion community. It's supported by 156 teachers across 7 schools. They made tremendous progress by cutting their teacher vacancies by 59.5% in the first year. That's 22 more classrooms served or staffed with qualified educators. Urban districts often face high turnover, competitive job markets, and diverse student needs. So again, this progress demonstrates that with flexible funding and strategic planning, even the most pressing staffing issues can be addressed effectively. And I'll turn it back over to Dr. Seaton.
Thank you, Dr. Patterson. On the final slide before our Q&A, we have a few itemized areas to discuss. On the first, ISB recommends an increase of $800,000 to our agriculture education line item. As part of this funding source, the Agriculture Ag Ed 3 Circles grant provides funding for ag teachers extended contract time to support student programs for work-based learning and leadership development with a district matching requirement. This program continues to grow each year through a combination of new agriculture programs being started across the state and existing program growth requiring the addition of new teaching positions. In FY26, allocations for districts had to be prorated as program growth exceeded funding. This increase aims to ensure all participating districts have adequate funding for FY27. Next, we have a $1 million increase for the Dolly Parton Imagination Library to continue to provide free books to children under the age of 5. This is an initiative of the Governor's Office, and the amount is based on the need from the Imagination Library of Illinois Foundation. We have an increase of $100,000 for our Grant Accountability and Transparency Act, or GATA, to support ongoing GATA responsibilities and cost for increases in services. We've included an increase of $118,500 for tax equivalent grants to support the growth and the loss of EAV for the district where Statesville Prison is located. Specifically, that's the Cheney-Mungie School District 88. And then the last two are continuing appropriations that we wanted to highlight, that we're requesting a continuing, not new funding, but continuing $3.5 million appropriation for the SEL Hubs and REACH program. These programs were started to help address the social emotional impacts of the pandemic on students and educators. And Illinois has received national recognition for these programs, has reached more than 110,000 participants through them since July 1 of 2023. The FY27 recommendation is to maintain the FY26 allocation for the program. And then similarly, a continuing $3 million appropriation for the state literacy plan implementation. ISB adopted the Illinois Comprehensive Literacy Plan in FY24 to increase adoption of evidence-based literacy practices and improve literacy outcomes. The success in this effort is reflected in Illinois' assessment data and nation-leading growth in ELA proficiency. The funds will be used to provide tools, support, and resources to increase alignment of teacher preparation programs and PK-12 instruction in the Comprehensive Literacy Plan to meet the needs of all learners. This line will be expanded in FY27 to include implementation of a numeracy plan, modeled after the literacy plan to boost lagging progress in math. The numeracy plan is anticipated to be adopted this coming June, and funding will be utilized in FY27 to support the implementation of the plan in all districts around Illinois. This time, I'll turn it back over to Dr. Sanders for questions and answers.
And in closing, we just want to thank you for your continued support for public education across the state. It's not lost on us that year over year, the General Assembly has transmitted to the governor a budget that invests, not only is it balanced, but it invests significantly in public education, which is meaningful, obviously, to our agency. And with that, we're glad to take any questions.
Representative Wilhauer for a question.
Thank you. Thank you for being here today. I want to start with talking about some of the transfer to the Department of Early Childhood. Specifically, give us an idea of how many employees and the salary of the employees that are being moved from ISB to the new department.
Absolutely. So I don't have the exact salaries with me. We can certainly get that for you, Representative. It's approximately 25 headcount that will be shifted over to the new Department of Early Childhood effective July 1st. That's actually FTE, not actual people. We don't currently have a full 25 people filling those positions. Some of those positions are vacant, but it is a total of 25 employees. Our FTE, full-time equivalents.
Okay, so there's not 25 actual people that are transferring. Okay.
Not effective July.
So is there less people under ISB's employ now than there was before this department was created?
No, sir.
Okay.
No, same headcount.
So there's no cost savings as far as that goes.
Correct.
But we are shifting programs over to the Department of Early Childhood. What kind of appropriations for the programs that we're shifting over there? Give us an idea on those.
Yeah, the biggest one is the Early Childhood Block Grant, which I noted at the very beginning, which is a $748 million.
748, okay, coming out of your budget and going over there.
Correct.
Okay. Is that reflect, is your budget that amount less now than it was before?
Yes.
Okay, but your overall budget is higher than it was before this new government agency was created?
If I'm understanding your question correctly, yes.
The amount of
Yes.
dollars that you're asking for,
Correct.
basically. So the deal is we created this new department for efficiency, yet they're doing the work over there, they're taking workload off of you guys, and your budget requests are still higher than they were before.
Correct.
And you have the same or more employees today than you did before we created this completely new government agency.
Yes, we're requesting the same number of headcount.
Okay.
It's a little bit different because we are not a code agency, and so we have to do our negotiations separately with our unions. We do not fall under the Central Management Services, and so that process looks a little bit different for the State Board of Education than it did for departments like Human Services and DCFS.
Yeah, but I think that if we asked them
And DCFS.
Yeah, but I think that if we asked them the same thing, their headcounts would be more than they are, and their budgets would be more than they were before. So we're really not streamlining government with this new agency. I think that's becoming abundantly clear. The number one thing that people all across the state say the issues are, we've now become the number one property tax burden state in the nation. And I just want to get you guys' idea, because education is the biggest line item on your property tax bills. Why are property taxes so high?
Again, that's a local issue. Local school districts must make the determination of what it takes to operate their local school system, taking into account state, federal funds, and then what they need locally to survive. It's an individual question for individual school boards about why their local property taxes continue to increase.
Isn't that part of why we do the EBF?
It is part of the reason.
Transfer some of that cost?
Absolutely.
I mean, isn't the state supposed to be the ones who primarily fund education?
I would agree.
One of your speakers said earlier today, and I'm not sure, there was a bunch of schools that you said were at 90% adequacy. Are we talking academically or financially?
That's for financially.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if they're 90% adequate, and we've got probably 25% of the schools in the state of Illinois that are at full financial adequacy. Why aren't we seeing property taxes come down?
Yeah, I think part of the reason, I know that evidence-based funding has been a great boon for school districts across the state. We still do not have all school districts to 90% or greater. We still have a lot of districts that are far away from 90% adequacy. And then on top of that, you do have the issue that Dr. Seaton spoke about with the mandated categoricals. So as costs increase for fuel, bus driver salaries, special education salaries, when the state share is not made up, then it has to go someplace. You don't pick that up through your evidence-based funding formula, so you turn to your local property taxpayers.
Have you guys about had your belly full of more mandates being pushed on local districts?
Yeah, I missed that, I'm sorry.
Have you had your belly full of more mandates from this General Assembly being pushed on the local school districts? When are we going to start seeing the State Board of Education start opposing some of this stuff?
We typically oppose anything that is a new unfunded mandate. Any of my legislative team knows that. I'd also, if you don't, if you'd like to know, I'd love to provide an update real quickly about our unfunded mandate relief task force that's been put into place by the members of the General Assembly. Dr. Seaton is actually the chair of that council and is making great headway.
Okay. When we talked about that adequacy, could we, I know you can't provide it today, but can we get a list of all the schools in the state of Illinois that are at adequacy?
Sure.
Or at least at 90% that we were talking about before?
Absolutely. I'd be glad to get that for you, Representative.
Why did the State Board of Education dumb down proficiency expectations in the last year?
So we didn't dumb down the proficiency expectations. We changed the cut scores for the statewide assessments. So as a reminder, when Illinois back in 2014 set new proficiency standards for Illinois students, They chose to go with a cut score in the SAT that was higher than what the College Board says was college ready, making us one of the most restrictive states in the country as it relates to cut scores.
So we lowered standards.
No,
though.
the standards remain the same. What we expect students to learn and be able to do remain exactly the same today as they did a year ago.
But there could be people that were not proficient before that would be proficient now because of the standards being lowered.
Again, the standards weren't lowered. The cut score was
Well,
lowered
is that
to
true or
match.
false?
We did not lower the standards.
No, is it true or false the somebody making the exact same academic proficiency would possibly be judged proficiently differently than what they were before?
That is accurate.
So
But
you did dumb down standards.
So
I mean, okay, we can. You decrease standards.
I did not lower the standards. The standards are what students are expected to know and be able to do. Teachers are still teaching the same content. We still have the same
That's a very
expectations of our
political
students.
answer,
It's an
Mr.
accurate
Sanders.
answer. The question, so prior to this shift, students across Illinois would receive a report from the College Board saying to their child, your child is college ready. And then 2 weeks later would get a letter from the state of Illinois based on that same exact score saying your kid is not ready for college. We were sending a signal to kids that they were not ready for college when they were ready for college. We fixed that problem. That's what we did.
Okay. What do you know about the Education Choice for Children Act as part of the Big Beautiful Bill? Explain to us how that works. Explain what Illinois would need to do, what benefits would be to students, and kind of where the State Board of Education's at on it.
Yeah, so the State Board has not taken a position on that provision yet. It's really in the hands of the governor, I believe, to make a determination.
Why haven't you? I'm very, very interested in why you haven't, because that's something that could provide additional funding to low-income students that need it very much. The State Board of Education did nothing to help support or further the Invest in Kids scholarship fund, which left over 10,000 kids in the lurch. And I'm just wondering, you talk about equity in education, and we have people come in here and talk about their opportunities shouldn't be limited by income or zip code, but yet the State Board of Education is definitely silent when it comes to programs that would actually help these people that don't cost the state a dime. Right now, there's people in the state of Illinois, individual citizens, that can donate to this private scholarship fund. They can donate to it. They can get a tax credit for it. But kids in Illinois can't access it because politically, apparently, it's unviable for this governor, and apparently it's unviable for the State Board of Education. I'm just wondering why.
Yeah, we've reviewed the Big Beautiful Bill and how it's stated in there. We are still awaiting the rules, though, to come down from the Department of Labor that would actually spell out the rules that would have to be followed for us to implement this program in the state.
What specifically do you want to know? I'm all about, I will help you get answers on that, because I know that there's multiple states that's done that. I've heard multiple people come in here and give that, and frankly, it sounds like an excuse. When you guys want something, when this governor wants something, he generally gets it on here. So I just don't think that this is something that you guys want to do. I don't think it's something you want to advocate for, clearly, and it's not something the governor wants to advocate for. If there's certain things that you need, we've got conduits to the administration. I'd be happy to help you get that information.
I mean, certainly helping getting the rules out of from the Department of Labor would be helpful for us to make.
How are other states doing it? How are other states doing it? How are other blue states doing it? Colorado's doing it.
Yeah, I have not.
Maybe you should look. If you really care about equity in funding and education, maybe you should talk to your counterparts there, because there are a lot of kids that really need it. There's a lot of kids that are stuck in absolutely failing schools, in this state. And you want to talk about, the equity and all of that. There's a lot of minority kids in Chicago and everywhere else that are stuck in places that are failing. And this doesn't go near far enough, but it would be helpful. So I would really encourage you guys to do a lot more due diligence on that, because that's just money out there that people are willing to give to. And it's unfortunate that nobody stood up for the Invest in Kids deal, which was a much better setup than this. It just frustrates me to no end. And I really don't want to hear people come in here and talk about, equity and education and all this when you're just leaving that stuff off the table because of politics. What's your response to that?
You have further questions for them, Representative?
Well, he never really explained how we get into that system, what that system does. Do you think that do you think that would be of benefit to students in Illinois, a program like that?
Again, Representative, I've not seen the rules coming down from the Department of Labor until I see.
You're an education professional. You've got a doctorate in this. What is your opinion? Is that something that is worthwhile? The students should have access to?
So the way the bill acts is that the governor of the state is the one to make this determination. And from my perspective, I'm awaiting.
Are you the primary advisor to the governor on issues of education? I mean, you're kind of appointed by the governor to oversee the schools in this state, right?
Through the state board, yes, I am.
Well, I would like for you to give the governor your opinion. I'd like for you to give us your opinion on it. I know you've looked at it. You would be negligent if you hadn't looked at it.
I've looked at the act, but I've not seen the rules yet that actually will dictate, just like when you guys pass a bill and say subject to rulemaking by the State Board of Education, districts don't typically take action until they actually see the rules that we come out with and give feedback on those. We're still awaiting the rules to come down from the federal government. I've not seen any rules to respond to.
Okay, well, I'm just wondering
You're going to
how
make that
everybody
call,
else is doing it.
Representative?
What's that?
You're going to make that call to
Yeah.
Trump to tell him to send the rules?
Let's do it, yeah.
All
yeah.
right. Then when they
I'm
get
just-
the rules, they can
I'm
move
sure,
forward.
I am sure that, these multitude of other states, both, Republican administrations and Democrat administrations, aren't just completely flying by the seat of their pants on this.
Without the rules, they probably are.
Oh.
So if you can help us get those rules, we
Okay.
appreciate it.
Well, let's see what we can do on that, and I eagerly anticipate everybody jumping on board once we get these rules. So appreciate you being here and answering questions. That's all I got at this time.
My pleasure.
We must add Representative Hirschauer to the roll, and for a question, Representative Favor-Diaz.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you all so much for coming and your thoughtful presentation. And I just want to acknowledge how difficult this budget year must have been in light of our budget situation, as well as the chaos and the changing of minds that regularly happens at the federal level. So I just wanted to first acknowledge the work that went into this. I want to talk a little bit about the property tax relief grant. As someone who lives in a district, and sends my children to a district that is still a tier 1, it's 69% funded. How well do you think and I also want to highlight that I did see, it looks like there's a difference in between yours and the governor's introduced budget in terms of that property tax relief grant being in there and yours. Can you talk to us a little bit about the effectiveness of it and what could be done to make it more effective at the local level?
Sure. So as you did note, we did include within our recommendation from the state board the $50 million that was that's statutorily required for the property tax relief grant. Leaving it to the General Assembly really to make the determination of whether or not that should continue to move forward. At the same time, we were asked to study that. As you recall, during the budget making process last year, there was a line added in saying that we would bring back specific data points to the General Assembly regarding the property tax relief grant. We do know that 83 districts that received property tax relief grants between FY19 and FY25 were in different tiers in terms of the evidence-based funding formula. 83 of the districts were in tier 1, meaning that they were 100% or more adequately funded. 79 districts were in tier 2, which is I'm sorry, 80, I had that wrong, I'm sorry. The 83 districts in Tier 1, those are the lowest funded, not 100% or more. 79 districts are in Tier 2, so getting closer to adequately funded, but not quite there yet. 21 districts were in Tier 3, meaning that they were 90 to 100% adequately funded, and 19 districts were in Tier 4. Ultimately, the determination, we provided all the data that was requested from the General Assembly, but ultimately the decision on whether you want those to continue would rest with the General Assembly.
Can you tell me more about how those districts, or how it's chosen which districts receive it and which don't? And I'm also curious if you could explain why districts who are Tier 4 districts are getting this when we know they are 100% or above,
Right.
giving them more, and in my opinion, more leverage to make those decisions at the local level.
If you don't mind, I'll let Dr. Seaton answer that one. He's more expert on how that works.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Sanders. So as far as the selection process goes, we do have, call it more or less a rank and sort methodology where we look at the criteria for the property tax relief grant. We pre-identify districts that would be at a very high probability of qualifying, and then we notify them directly that they might consider applying for this. And then we collect applications and work with them directly. So obviously high tax rate plays into that conversation. But it's the reasons for the Tier 4s are actually a little bit different. Some of the Tier 4 districts that actually get the grant only are Tier 4 districts because they get the grant, because the money flowing from the property tax relief grant actually goes into their base funding minimum, increasing their percent of adequacy above 100%. So they've become Tier 4 districts, not because of local wealth, but because of extra EBF that they've gotten over the years because of the property tax relief grant. For a few years early in the process, the criteria were different. Upon initial passage, the criteria were different, and we saw a lot of Tier 4 districts qualify largely based on their property tax rate. Then there was a tweak to the law that focused those dollars to more Tier 1 and Tier 2 districts, and now we've seen over the years districts who have gotten the grant even potentially multiple times, because that money's been put into their base funding minimum, they've become a Tier 4 district because of the EBF enhancements they've gotten through the program.
And when you were talking about the criteria, besides the high tax rate, is there any other criteria that go into what you talked about, the pre-identifying?
Yeah, there is, and I can't quote it off the top of my head, but we'd be glad to provide that information. It's pretty straightforward.
Great, thank you. A couple other questions, if I may, Chair. Thank you for your work highlighting Zion. That is a district that is close to mine, and know that was needed. I love to see that that huge reduction. I specifically want to highlight also another difference between your and the governor's budget, and that was the affinity groups. And so I see that while it is not under the teacher vacancy grant, I see that as an important tool in teacher retention, which we know is also an issue, is not only just recruitment, but also retention. So can you talk to us about why you chose to keep the affinity group line item in your budget?
Absolutely. So we've seen a great value coming from a multitude of the programs that support teacher vacancies, and the affinity groups being one of them. We've even had internal conversations about, even if there's no budget line item included in this year's budget, how could we as an agency perhaps still encourage and work with local school districts to ensure that we continue to have affinity groups. In my former district, we had them. I know in Dr. Patterson's former district, she had affinity groups. It's an important way of making people feel valued and a part of their school community. And so it's something that we really would like to try to continue with or without funding.
Great, thank you. I think that feeling valued and a part of the community is key to retention and people staying where they are. Finally, my last group of questions has to deal around the issue of unhoused students. I come at this particularly because I'm working on a piece of legislation this year in the budget around funding our homeless line item, but also because when I worked at Orr High School on the west side of Chicago, we had the highest unhoused rate in the state at the time. It's a very different school than it was 10 years ago, but at the time it was the highest percentage of unhoused students. And I'd recently read that in the last couple of years, we've had about 58,000 students who are identified as being unhoused. But we also know that there can be an undercount, especially around when, families are doubling up and just kind of in what we would not think of as traditionally unhoused, but they are indeed not in stable living conditions. In your opinion, what could be done, either at the local level or the state level? What could we do to get a better count around that accuracy? More accuracy around that count. That's what I meant.
Off the top of my head, I really can't think of anything specifically to do differently. I think we're going to see, especially with some of the SNAP decisions coming into play, we're going to see fewer and fewer people being willing to sign up for public benefits, and we're just going to reduce that number even further is my fear, and we'll lose track of even more families. But if you don't mind, I'll work with the team, and we can see if we can come up with some better way of trying to ensure we don't lose count of our homeless students specifically.
Yeah, that would be great.
Or housing insecure.
Yes. And then as an additional follow-up, are there ways in which kind of the state looks at how to support students who are unhoused, kind of, based on where they are, whether that's an urban environment, suburban environment, rural? We know that this is an issue all across the state, but are there programmatic things or funding that can be looked at to make sure that we're supporting students no matter where they are if they're unhoused?
Yeah, we can certainly follow up and try to get some suggestions on that as well. It does look different depending on the part of the state that you're in. I remember visiting Olney, where they, have, I think, 2 hotels, and they're lucky because they have hotels, but there are some communities that don't even have any options for families that suddenly find themselves without a home. And so, yeah, we'll discuss some potential options and get them back to you, Representative.
Great. Thank you all so much. Thank you for your work.
Thank you very much, Representative. Representative Hirschauer for a question.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, everyone, for being here. Hi, Dr. Sanders. I didn't get a chance to say hi to you. I'm over here before
Hi, Representative.
I was running late. First, I just want to thank you and acknowledge what Rep. Favor-Dias said, what a difficult past couple of years this has been, and this year especially. So I appreciate the work that's gone into this budget, and I acknowledge that we all wish we had more money to put in different places, and these were tough decisions to make. I want to thank you on behalf of some of my school districts for the MCAT increase. I think that will make a really big difference across the state, and we appreciate that. And I have a couple questions about after-school programming. This is, as a parent and as a former educator, it's a space really near and dear to my heart, how we're supporting our kids outside of their school time, before and after school. And we know that there's been some tough conversations coming from the federal government and a lot of uncertainty of where some of those federal dollars are going to go and whether they're going to stop, which you have no control over. I acknowledge that. But I do see some cuts in some key after-school programs, and I just, kind of want to ask your thinking on this, and just, the general after-school program line had a $10 million cut. After School Matters had a $6 million cut. The Parent Mentor Program, which isn't directly out of school time, but I think supports families in a very similar way as our after-school programming, had a $6 million cut. So that really piles up on each other, almost, in a cyclical manner. It impacts a lot of the same communities. So just a little explanation there.
Absolutely. So the first one, the After School Matters, was one where historically I believe it's been a $20 million appropriation. Dr. Seaton can keep me honest here. And last year there was a $10 million one-time increase in the budget for After School Matters that we implemented. So that, and it actually, that increase in funding actually caused the delay in us getting funding out the door, because we had already just planned on $20 million originally based on our budget proposal. So that's why we brought that back down to our historic request for After School Matters. I'm going to turn to Dr. Seaton to discuss the other or Dr. Patterson, whoever might have the other rationale for the other reductions. Do you have them?
Yeah, I can handle these. So After School Matters went from 12 to 6 in our budget recommendation. After school programs went 35 to 25 million in our recommendations. As I'm sure everybody on the committee is aware, we treat member initiatives in a way where we reduce back to the board's original recommendation year over year, which is how we handled the member initiative section. Internal discussions, we treated these in the same manner. It's not that we don't see value in the programs, and it's not that we don't see the money being used in positive and good ways, but it was the board's historical ask has been 6 million and 25 million in those spaces. So we reverted back to those only on that rationale.
And just back to the original premise of this year, we really tried to stick to the core focus areas of making sure that we fund EBF, mandated categoricals to the extent we possibly can, knowing the impact that would have if they're not funded, and then the third, career and technical education. Anything else we tried to take back to historic levels.
Okay, and again, I understand, the parameters that we're all working under, but there are so many programs up and running in the state that have this infrastructure now for before and after school care, and it takes a little bit of time to get there and to build those community partnerships. And when we go up and down, back and forth with their funding, it really affects communities. So I am, always looking for new revenue sources, but if we could find sustainable revenue sources for these wraparound services in our schools, I think it would pay dividends down the line. So along that line, I'm going to ask, again, a lot of these are federal questions that are out of your control, and I understand that. But just looking at, all the federal dollars that are TBD, and help me clarify, we will appropriate a chunk of money, but those federal dollars are TB, some of them might roll over, some of them might be TBD.
Correct.
So could we find ourselves in a situation where, halfway through a year, we just have no money to continue those programs? And I'm thinking about 21st Century Community Learning Centers because I'm on that after school path, but, I see that in every single page in this book, federal dollars TBD. So do we have contingency plans, or, what are we thinking?
So we do have funding commitments, of course, through the current federal fiscal year. The president came out recently, of course, with a lean budget that it scales back significantly many educational programs. A lot of this is going to be out of our hands, as you mentioned. So I think we need to be prepared for potential cuts to education from the feds. Go ahead, Dr. Seaton.
Yeah, just for clarification, the federal fiscal year 26 are our appropriations for our fiscal year 27. So the budget that was just passed here in February for education will be our appropriations for FY27.
Right.
So where our schedule shows amounts, those were tentative back then, but we are secure in funding for FY27 in all of those line items. The budget that Dr. Sanders just referenced that was just released this week, maybe last week, will be our fiscal year 28. Yeah. So we've got some time to plan and prepare should there be any cuts, assuming they pass budget on time.
That's very helpful, thank you. And one last question about teacher vacancy grants. I know that they have been very successful, and I appreciate all the data you shared, but I'm going to ask for a little more data. I know that you I remember one year we got a printout of all the districts that were awarded these grants. I'd just like to dial in a little bit more on that, because I did notice in the governor's introduced budget, there's a discrepancy. ISB asked for a little more in this program than the governor did. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And just because you see the value and what we're doing there?
We've seen a lot of great results, and it really was the governor's initiative originally. It's one that my very first budget proposal sitting before you was not in our original proposal, but the governor did put it in his State of the State, and we've certainly seen the effects of it across the state.
And can you remind me when we switched from, because that was started with ARPA funds, is that right? The teacher vacancy grant?
No, I believe it's always been general funds.
It's always been general funds? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for
Yeah.
that clarification. Okay, done.
So you're asking for a list of all the
Yes.
districts that received it?
I would love a list of
Yeah.
all the districts that are receiving them and,
Yep.
how many teachers they've hired and retained and all that good data.
We'll get you the data.
Okay, thank you.
Representative McLaughlin, question? Really? Oh, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, he said you were leaving, so.
No. This is
you know.
important.
Okay.
Today, I'm a doctor of numbers, since there's so many doctors up here.
All right, thank you.
I'm an undocumented doctor today, but thank you for recognizing me. Thank you for being here. As a person that's been on the committee for just 3 years, and trying to understand and unwind everyone that comes before us, 9 years ago, and please help fact check me here, it appeared that the total number of public students, students in public schools was just over 2 million, 2,041,000 is the numbers that I have. The number as of 2025 was 1.848 million, so roughly a 200,000 student drop. So I found that a little interesting, since I keep being told we're growing in population in Illinois, and maybe we're growing in older people and not in K through 12. I wanted to point out the number of administrators that we had in the public school system was 11,833. And with a drop in 200,000 students, we added last year 13,400 highly paid administrators. Service personnel, 37,000 up to 46,000 in the last 9 years. And in this one, I couldn't believe it, because I keep hearing about our teacher shortages. And we were at 122,000. And just to put this in perspective, both my sisters and my mother are teachers. And today we're at 135,000 teachers in the public school system. So by my calculation, that's 15,000 more teachers, 1,500 more administrators teaching 200,000 less children in Illinois. Does that sound right to you?
Yes,
Okay.
that sounds right.
So from an investment perspective and an efficiency perspective, I have to go back and answer to my 12 towns as it relates to their property taxes always. And we talked a little bit about it here. The equity-based funding, I think, came from a great place. My understanding is the objective is to make sure everyone gets a quality education. Has there been any studies that conduct the increase in property taxes that then gets sent to the communities to better educate children in underprivileged communities? Is there any direct line of proficiency improvement based on equity-based funding? Not the financial side, but is that investment giving a return in proficiency to the students and to the communities that are participating in this, hoping that it has improved?
I think that's the overall intent of the evidence-based funding formula. Everything that's in the formula was based on research that had been done that shows what the appropriate ratios would be for student-to-teacher ratios, social worker to student ratios, administrator to student ratios that lead to better outcomes for kids. And I think that's why you see this increase also, even at a time when our enrollment is declining. I can tell you, in 2008, 2009, when we had the last big recession, all of our districts, we were all local superintendents at the time, lost a lot of teachers. We had to cut a lot of teachers. We took class sizes much larger than they ever should have been. I had class sizes in elementary schools of 30 plus kids for an elementary teacher. And I'm sure if you talk to any teacher, they tell you that's a really difficult class to be able to reach every child. So the evidence-based funding formula coming in on the heels of the recession did lead to some significant increases aligned to our evidence-based funding formula for not only administrators, teachers, support professionals. So we did see an increase in staffing. At the same time, you're seeing a decrease in enrollment.
So you then believe, based on the numbers from 9 years ago, they were insufficient based on the number of teachers to student ratio? And now we are 15,000 more teachers with 200,000 less students. Are we there yet? I guess is my question for taxpayers.
I mean, I have to do the math. We can certainly look to see, do the division on the evidence-based funding formula to see if we can align up numbers of positions based on what the formula says it should be. I've not done that. We can certainly look to do that. But I can tell you, it has made a difference in outcomes for kids in local school districts. If you talk to your local superintendents, they will tell you the difference it's made. Just to give you some, history back from when I was a local superintendent and this past, some of the first things we invested in were assistant principals for our elementary schools, where we were seeing a significant number, increase in student behavior issues. And ones where you couldn't having just one administrator on site was not enough. We brought back, for the first time ever, fully certified librarians to lead our libraries rather than relying on educational support professionals to do that work. We brought in additional counselors for middle and high schoolers. Things that had been cut and neglected for years, we were able to start bringing back as a result of evidence-based funding. And I think that's why you see this increase in staffing.
Okay, and you understand as far as efficiency and the return on investment, how this might appear that we are having an adult jobs program here with children that are performing below proficiency levels where they were just 4 and 5 years ago. And I've had 5 daughters that have all gone through the public school system in my community, and I've seen significant changes in proficiencies just in my region, with more administrators than ever, with more programs than ever. And so you can understand as a taxpayer, which we all are, business owners, which some of us are, it gets a little frustrating when I sit in these committees and I hear more and more and more, and we're not getting a direct line from a bit more investment to better outcomes in proficiency. So, and the final question I have is, I've been sitting in these committees when I am here, Mr. Chairman, thank you for pointing that out, and $4.5 billion is the federal dollars that are potentially at risk. Do I understand that? Because we keep hearing about, well, we're trying to project whether Washington is going to send $4.5 billion or not. Is it part of the problem, and I'm not indicting you, but as a 60-year-old man, half my life has been a Republican administration in DC and half has been Democrat. Are there policies or directives in what we send that is flying into the face of the changes over a year ago that Linda McMahon and others in the federal administration want to see before they release monies as it relates to DEI or other language or other issues? Are there things that we're doing that are ignoring the changes in Washington through your offices that are jeopardizing $5 billion in funding?
Not to my knowledge, no.
So we've removed all the DEI language that was part of Linda McMahon's directives. We've done all that. We've scrubbed a lot of the issues that, I mean, come on, we know what I'm talking about here. The federal government has put forward things that they don't want to see. Have we removed those, or are we poking the bear saying, go ahead and take the money and we'll let you? Because I really, whether you're here 10 years from now, we know the pendulum will swing back and forth. I just don't think it's wise to poke the bear no matter what team you're on when children's education and dollars are at play here.
So there was an early request from the U.S. Department of Education for us to have every district certified that they will not do any diversity, equity, or inclusion within their schools. That was something that the feds wanted directly certified by every superintendent in our state. That was quickly overturned by the courts, and they were told they cannot do that. And so, no, we're not doing anything right now that flies in the face of any federal regulation or mandate that is legally permissible.
Okay, thank you. And then the final question that I had, so I just wanted to give these numbers because it's so hard to get homeschool numbers. I was not homeschooled, but just to put in comparison, 67,000 people were homeschooled in 2016, 85,000 today. And private schools, which I was a beneficiary of on scholarship, and it was 295,000 in 2016, down about 110,000 to 180,000 today. And I just wanted to make sure those numbers are all recognized because although public education is why we're here today, I also believe in choice as it relates to what fits best for parents, particularly as a person who was underprivileged and received scholarships to high school and college. I'm very sensitive to that fact, and whether it worked for me or not, that's still debatable. But I do believe that parents deserve that choice, and I strongly recommend that you don't waste the opportunity to grasp $300 million to benefit our low-income children. And please let the governor know that he'll end up with more people like me here maybe in the future if he does that. So I would appreciate that if you could. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sure he'll jump right on that.
Was that it, Representative?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Based on some of the previous comments, we are still a local control state, aren't we?
We are.
So that means that some of the decisions that are being referenced here are not handled here in Springfield, but they're done by local districts, right?
Correct. Related to property taxes specifically, yes.
Oh, okay, but like
And
with
curriculum.
hiring administrators.
Correct, hiring.
Local school districts make those decisions, right?
Correct.
I just think it's important to separate, that which we may do here versus what is being done locally. And it sounds like some of those decisions that are being questioned here should be questioned in their local districts, because those elected school board members make those decisions.
Correct.
Is that a fair assessment?
Absolutely. Local schools, superintendents and their boards must make the decisions around staffing and what best meets their needs. They can also speak to their local proficiency. I can speak to the state proficiency, which does show significant growth across our state, the highest ever graduation rate, NAEP results that are higher than many other states for 8th graders and on par for 4th grade with every other state. U.S. News and World Report that lists us as 7th in the country for public education. Many other publications that give us a label of A for our public education system. So I think we're doing good things for our kids, and our district leaders and boards are doing what's best for their local communities on a daily basis.
Okay, I appreciate that. I thought it was just important to point that out. I want to shift gears just a little bit. I think when we talked the other day, there's always a conversation around school construction. Help me to understand, or maybe all of us if they're interested, what role does the State Board of Education play as it relates to when school districts want to build something? What is the interaction, if any at all? Are local school districts subject to any of the procurement rules that we have here at the state level? Or are they kind of separate and apart from that and can make their own decisions? Whatever you can offer in that, I'm curious about.
Absolutely. So local school districts do have a lot of autonomy when it comes to how they proceed forward with any capital that they do. They do have to follow specific procurement regulations. So depending on what their local board policy says, state law still does require them to go through a procurement process to hire architects, to hire, of course, the contractors and so forth. Typically, construction locally is going to be done based on a referendum that the community passes saying they want to see something built. So it's all locally driven, Representative.
I think what I'm asking, like for instance, School District A wants to build a field house. The high school district per se wants to build a field house. What are the rules that govern? Like, do they have any ability to specify that they want to use local or minority contractors? What governs their ability to do that? Or is it all driven by a board policy where they can put that into a board policy that they want to see these items? And the reason I'm bringing it up is we know that one of the South Suburban School Districts is interested in building a career center. So I believe you all have approved their ability to be a area career center, and they part of their fulfillment of that is they want to build a brand new center for these career programs. And I was recently in a conversation with the superintendent who felt strongly that they don't have the ability to set forth or dictate their ability to, say, select local minority contractors if they want to. And I guess I want to try to figure out from your perspective what that is, or what they have the ability to do, and so that all districts can be informed that, yeah, you actually can. But if it's the fact that they need a board policy passed first, is there any template language that exists with the State Board of Education that can be given to local school boards to say, if you desire to do this, this is what you have to do first, and then here are the things that govern how you then move forward with making those choices.
Yeah, let me, if you don't mind, I'll ask Dr. Seaton to take the lead on answering this one. He has a little bit more information on how the construction process works for school districts.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Sanders. So I think the real question to answer your question is, what is the funding source? If the funding comes from the Capital Development Board, then you have to play by a totally different set of rules than if you are funding the project locally, either with referendum dollars or health, life, safety dollars or other dollars, working cash bonds or what have you, what you've generated locally. I would say that in a Capital Development Board project, they adhere primarily to state procurement guidelines. It's much more stringent. A lot of times, in my experience working with the Capital Development Board, districts don't get to pick the contractors. The Capital Development Board typically picks your architect and your contractor for you, or at least has a heavy say in who you end up selecting. And from a local standpoint, you asked about where ISB intersects in this conversation. We would, if there ever were to be a capital bill again for schools, we would manage the application process. The funding would flow through CDB. So anybody who was a recipient of those dollars would end up being in a Capital Development Board project. However, where we also get involved is in the Health, Life, Safety Code. So a school district has means to do renovations and potential construction based on current condition of their building if there are enough violations of the Health, Life, Safety Code, asbestos, roofs, windows that are outdated, things that are environmental hazards, et cetera, et cetera. If enough work presents itself for a full renovation, that can be authorized by ISB, but we work very closely with the district's architect that the district selects to make sure that all of their criteria they're putting forward for consideration meets the health, life, safety codes and the eligibility for those tax dollars to be used that direction.
What about a brand new building? Mm-hmm. Still, they got the funding source challenge there, right?
Correct.
So what if it's all local?
If it's all local, then the district's going to maintain most, if not all, of the control about selection of the architect, selection of the contractor, based on their local board policy, like Dr. Sanders said. And those provisions, while there are some that are state mandated, there has to be certain criteria in there. A district is free to add local criteria that would be important to their community as well, as long as it didn't violate the procurement code and policies that they have to follow.
Do most districts have their own procurement code?
I wouldn't necessarily call it a code, but there are procurement policies, and bid thresholds. Anything over a certain amount has to be bid out. There are certain aspects that are managed by capital projects are a little bit different than if you're bidding out a service or like a transportation service, et cetera. Food service is a completely different procurement than anything even comparable if you're going to bid out your cafeteria services. That's a very complex process. So I think all of them have their own nuances.
Well, I guess maybe I'm focused right now on just construction for what it's worth. Just trying to see, I want to empower that superintendent to feel like if he wants to be in that way, that he can. And I just didn't get the impression from the conversation I had. He seemed very reticent to say, yeah, I want to be able to do it this way, or he just felt like his hands were bound. He even referenced the suburban district to Chicago. Well, Chicago can kind of do it however they want to. We don't have the same ability that Chicago has. And whether or not that is true or not true, if he has some ability to set forth how he wants to do it, that includes or offers the inclusion of minority contractors, I just want to make sure that he understood. Mm-hmm. Because what I often find, particularly in local suburban school districts, is that their attorneys tell them they can't do it. And they never question their attorneys. And they should question their attorneys. And I just want to make sure that he's empowered, that if he's going to go down this path with potentially this new building, and then any other school district that's thinking about a local project, whether it's an addition, maybe a brand-new school. I want them to understand what they can or cannot do, at least in my region anyway. I can't speak for other parts of the state, but I know using local and minority contractors in particular is important in my area. And I just want superintendents to be empowered. And I don't know, I know Dr. Sanders, you often, I think you've got, for lack of a better word, like big conference calls with superintendents. I don't know if you still do that kind of thing, like a weekly call or something like that.
I do a weekly message, but
Weekly
not
message?
a weekly, yeah.
You know, I would respectfully ask if there's wording that you can put into your weekly message for superintendents who have that desire and interest, that you start to encourage them, this is how you go about doing it, and encourage them to really have real internal conversation about making that kind of thing happen. I think that would be great if you could.
Yeah, we, in our center, we regularly consult with districts on construction projects around these very similar topics. So if it's ever helpful, if you ever receive that kind of commentary from a superintendent, we're always glad to support technical assistance and help them guide them through their options too on an individual basis.
Well, I think in this case, I'm trying to figure out maybe a way for it to be pushed forward. Sure. What do you call it? Push in, pull out, push out services to them, if you will, because otherwise I don't think he'd look. I don't think he'd find out on his own. So whatever overtures you can make toward them, I think would be helpful. Great, thank you. I think those were at least a couple of questions I had based on the commentary. We talked in great detail the other day, and I appreciate that. Certainly, as members, if we have other questions, we encourage you to contact directly or through our staff to get any additional information that you have. And you have one more question? Okay, please. Representative Wilhauer.
Thank you. I want to reiterate I would love to get a list of questions and concerns from you guys about the scholarship program. We can try to help you find answers from. So if we could be specific on that, that would be great. Thank you.
Well, would that need to come from the governor's office, Representative? If the decision on that is the governor's decision. I'm just asking if that's the governor's decision.
These guys are the experts, and I think that it would be a good thing if we could get that. If we could get that from them, their concerns, and that would be my request.
Well, how about this? So they understand exactly what you're asking. I know you've stated it. Maybe you might want to send them a letter, so they're real clear on what you want.
Okay.
And that way they can respond appropriately based on the letter that you provide them.
Happy to do that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
And thank you for being here today.
All right, seeing no further, Representative Freeze, question?
Yeah, real quick. So if I remember, you testified about the cost of busing and what that percentage of funding is. What was it last year, and what's your request this year? What do you anticipate that funding to be at?
Yes, let me get to that page. So for transportation costs, it looks like we are at, for regular and vocational transportation, we're at 76% current proration level, and special ed transportation is at 60%. To maintain those levels, that's included in our $151.5 million. To get them fully funded, I think the number off the top of my head was closer to 700 million.
Okay.
Total.
So your request is to keep them at the current funding rate?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
All right. Thanks, Ms. Whitten.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Representative. Seeing no further questions, Dr. Sanders, Dr. Seaton, Dr. Patterson, thank you all very much. And Dr. Soye, thank you for joining us as well. Ma'am, thank you very much for being a part of this conversation. And if we need to, we'll ask you to come back, but thank you very much for the information you've provided. Thank you. Moving on to our next panel. We do have two additional panels. The next one is Principal Mentoring and Recruitment. I think those individuals are virtual. Are they ready to go? Okay. So joining us virtually to speak on Principal Mentoring and Recruitment, we have Alma Solis, and Jackie Smith. I don't know which one is going to go first. Are they ready to go? Okay. Then I'll follow my list. Ms. Solis, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, okay. Or did you want to speak first, Allison? I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I was going to ask, with the committee's indulgence, I'll let our guests on Zoom go first.
Okay. All right then. Well, Ms. Solis, why don't we start with you? Just introduce yourself for the record, and then please proceed with your testimony.
Yeah, so good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Dr. Alma Solis, and I currently serve as a principal. So I am here to share my experience as a former protege in a principal mentoring program and why this investment matters. So not just for leaders, but for the students and the communities that we serve. When I first stepped into the principalship, I was prepared in many ways. And I remember when I was handed the keys to the building, and then once I got here, it's like, oh my goodness, where's the support? Like in many new principals, I quickly realized the complexity of the role. The decisions are constant, the expectations are high, and often you're navigating this responsibility in isolation. So mentoring changed that experience for me. Just having a confidential, trusted mentor gave me the space to think through real-time challenges. Whether it was like supporting staff, making instructional decisions, or responding to difficult situations overall. It wasn't about the evaluation or supervision. It was about having someone who understood the role and can help me lead more effectively in that moment. And having someone readily available was definitely a key to my success as a principal. So because of that support, I was able to make stronger decisions, remain grounded during challenging times, and stayed focused on what matters most, our students, and of course, our teaching and learning, right? So over time, that investment had lasting impact. It strengthened my leadership, increased my confidence, and ultimately contributed to my ability to remain in the role and grow as a school leader. That stability matters. So when principals stay and grow, schools become more consistent, the staff feels supported, and students benefit from a stronger, more focused, learning environments. So without that kind of support, we risk, higher turnover, disrupted school communities, and increased cost, both financially and in lost momentum for student success. So principal mentoring is not a remedial support, it's a preventative investment. So we need to see that as an investment. It builds the capacity early, it strengthens the leadership over time, and it helps ensure that schools remain stable and effective for the students that we serve. So thank you for your time and your commitment to supporting school leaders and the communities we serve. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's ask Ms. Smith to provide her testimony. Just introduce yourself and please proceed, and then we'll maybe go to questions if there are any. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jackie Smith. I'm a first-year principal at Sparta High School. I'm actually very honored to be sitting here with you guys today. I'm a political science major, so I'm very appreciative of your time and what you guys do. So I honestly did not want to be in the principal mentoring program. I'm a first-year principal. My superintendent urged me to do it. So I couldn't be more overwhelmed with gratitude for my experience in that position. One of the things that I've learned very quickly as a school administrator is that I feel like I'm on an island a lot of the times. The people that are stakeholders in my district, whether it be school board or other administrators, they all have their own personal opinions on matters. They all have maybe something that they're looking to gain out of it. So having somebody readily available that helps me navigate through my journey, that has no political ties to my district, that has no agenda. It's just sheerly my mentor is there to help me survive, because it is a taxing job. One of the things I've learned rather quickly is that I'm always on the job. There's questions that I have that pop up late at night, and to have that resource readily available that I know for a fact if I called my mentor right now, she would answer without hesitation and give me sound advice moving forward. Because there is so many different issues that pop up in the school setting, whether it be discipline, whether it be special ed, whether it just could be the mandated trainings and reporting that we have to do as far as the overall maintenance of a school district. It's really, really difficult to have a firm grasp on all the things that you need to do, and having that outside entity just to help you prepare for that and to guide you through those things, to give you gentle reminders, that constant checking in, not on just how's the job going, but how are you holding up individually. Having someone that invested in me was extremely beneficial for me. I don't know that I would have had the success I've had in my first year, whether had it not been for my mentor. So it's something that I see immediate value in. I think that once the clock hours are over, that I will still continue meeting with my mentor, because that person has been a very good sounding board for me. A lot of the curriculum changes, a lot of the things that we're looking at doing has come from my mentor's guidance with me. So it's one of those things that to have someone that doesn't want anything other than your success in my back pocket at any given time, it has been a godsend for me. And I could speak all day on the values of it. School administrators, they're facing more and more challenges, and I can see why many are leaving and going other places. So having a support system in place to help retain principals and to help kind of groom those principals into becoming great leaders is invaluable, in my opinion. Thank you all for your time. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you very much. But first of all, let me apologize. I made an assumption about your gender, and I do apologize for that. I guess, did you want to add anything, Allison?
Sure, that'd be great. Allison Maley with the Illinois Principals Association. I wanted to especially thank Jack and Alma for joining us today. This morning that she's interested in becoming a mentor for upcoming new principals as well. Our ask is an investment in $1.2 million for the new principal mentoring program and $1.8 million in the school leader pipeline program, which is the principal recruitment line item. That line item is included in both the ISB and the governor's budget. Mentoring, sadly, is not. However, we view those as programs that work well together. Recruitment is to help individuals that are interested in becoming principals with tuition support to return to school and get their principal certifications so they can join the ranks of school administrators and help fill the pipeline as we go forward. And then mentoring helps support new principals as they're coming into buildings with the kind of support you just heard about from our two members here. We've had some studies out there in the last several years. The Wallace Foundation found that schools with effective principals see higher student achievement, better teacher satisfaction and retention, improved attendance, and fewer suspensions. Even the National Conference of State Legislatures, I know many of you attend the NCSL conference at various times. They also recommend implementing or expanding induction and mentoring programs and to provide support from trained mentors or coaches. To quote a recent study of theirs, to improve outcomes for students, it is essential to invest in high quality teachers and leaders. So again, to strengthen and sustain school leadership in our schools, we are advocating for those two line items. We heard a little bit about the teacher retention program that the state board has been focused on, but we feel it's just as important to maintain and recruit great leaders into our schools to help retain those same teachers. If you have specific questions about the mentoring program and the recruitment program, I've got lots of information. In the interest of time, I can share that now, or I can happy to follow up with each of you individually to share that as well about how those dollars are used.
Thank you very much. So you mentioned one supports individuals to go back to school to get their credentials to be able to become principal, and the other is for mentoring. Correct. In a lot of professions, mentors don't get paid to mentor other people. So why is it important here?
So it's important here because we are asking sometimes current principals, sometimes retired principals to spend time out of their own day to help support a new person. And it's generally not anybody from their own district. Some districts certainly do that. I think Superintendent Sanders spoke about that a while ago with the affinity groups. Some districts do internal mentoring programs for teachers and leaders, but we have a program set up that we set up people with folks from their geographic region if possible, but those that are outside the school district. I think Jack spoke to it too, that it's nice to have sort of an unbiased opinion from somebody that doesn't work in the same community, isn't from the same school district, that can kind of give you that unbiased support as you're, going through difficult decisions sometimes and having difficult conversations within your district. So again, sometimes we are employing individuals that are currently school leaders themselves. So it's an added responsibility on their behalf to embark on this journey with other upcoming leaders. There are requirements for that program. So the mentors receive 10 hours of initial training plus 5 hours pre-match training. The mentoring model includes a minimum of 40 hours of structured goal alignment, leadership, leadership standards focus, and actionable feedback. And there are regular face-to-face and virtual meetings. So, we're compensating people for their time. It's not a large amount. I believe it's $2,000 per mentor. So it's not a huge amount of money, but it's in order to serve up to 400 new principals per year, that $1.2 million would do that.
Okay, the two individuals, and I guess if they're still there, I'd like to just ask them to answer the same question. So I'm assuming each of them has received support through these?
Yes.
So would they be, and again, if they can answer, in their positions without the support?
I'll let them answer.
I'm sorry, just to clarify, your question is if we would have been able to do this without the support of other principal mentors?
Well, of the resources that come along with these programs.
Would we be able to do it? Possibly, but you know what? I did my entire dissertation on this and how to support principals, especially like during their first year. And like I said, oftentimes, you get your keys to the building and there's that lack of support, right? When it comes to, and even through like my dissertation study, a lot of principals, a lot of leaders, a lot of administrators, they said that that's what they were lacking. Because they wanted to ensure, and I think that part of kind of what like Allison, stated was that a lot of principals are leaving the profession. I think Mr. Smith also shared that, and the turnover is pretty high. So like, why, like thinking about, providing the support up front and seeing it as an investment is crucial. There's times where you're going to have to be speaking in front of the board with like very contentious topics, right? And so when you have somebody that you can reach out to who has been in the profession, to kind of help you and support you with that, it's someone that you can reach out to. Just like, Mr. Smith also mentioned, there's no ties to your current district. So you're able to kind of like speak freely, and you're able to get that support from somebody else, and somebody that's like readily available, right? Somebody who wants to come, and they're having that commitment to come and support you, and being just a phone call away. Sometimes it's not the same, reaching out to another principal within your district. There might be busy. Some of them are retired. Some of them are in the profession, but once you're committed to that, it's like making sure that you're able to get to them, having those meetings, having that sounding board, that you can talk to, had really helped me and supported me throughout my journey, at least as a principal. And this is now my 4th year as a building principal, and I would love to continue and provide that to new principals coming into the profession, because it's a very important job. The complexity of the principal role, every year there's more and more to it. So having somebody to be there and support, I think, would really help just ensure that principals stay in their profession, because I think they're leaving pretty early. I think it's under 10 years or something. I'm not sure of the statistics, I can remember, but they don't stay very long in the profession. And sometimes we wonder if it is because of the lack of mentoring and having someone there.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Smith, any thoughts?
I'm a can-do attitude kind of person, so there's not a whole lot that I don't feel I can accomplish if I really sat down and tried it. But at the same time, I have hundreds of students that parents have tasked me with taking care of, providing for, and educating the most precious things in their lives. And I don't take that lightly. So when it comes to using every resource that I have available, I'm going to do so. The resources that I had, can I do my job? Yeah, I can do it, but I'm not going to know that it's as effective without those resources. I had multiple instances pop up. I had a discipline hearing pop up to where I was the only person in my school district that had ever held a discipline conference to that nature. Without the guidance of my mentor, I'm not sure that I would have made it through as successfully as I did. I had multiple other instances that I had to lean on my mentor for because of the fact that I did not have I have the supports in my district, but the knowledge wasn't there because the other principals in my district are almost as new as I am. So having that person to go to when things got tough, the documentations that she gives, like almost everything that I sent to my staff in my first year were tweaked from things that I got from my mentor. So I could have done the job, but I don't know that it would been done as well as it has so far.
Fair enough. Thank you very much. I've got questions from members. Who wants to go first? I thought both of you had questions, so. Okay, Representative Hirschauer then,
Okay.
please.
I didn't know you too. Thank you. I just had a really quick question. So you mentioned that the principal mentoring is not in the ISB's introduced budget this year. Was it in the budget last year?
I don't believe so. We've been fortunate to have great relationships with the state board, and they have been supporting the program through ESSER dollars, but those, as we know, are dried up pretty quickly. So
okay,
we'd love for it to be coming from GRF at some point to be more sustainable.
Okay. And the principal recruitment, were those also ESSER dollars that have now moved to GRF?
I believe they were GRF last year, but I'm not certain on that. I can get back with you for certain.
Okay. And I'm trying to think, because I think I've been on this committee since 2021. So is that about how long the mentor program has been in existence?
The mentor program was put into law. It predates me, which I've been at IPA for 15 years. So we actually, it's in the law. It's subject to appropriation, as many things are, unfortunately. But there's statute behind it, and there's administrative rule behind it that also, sets out the requirements for the mentors, requirements for the mentees, the stipend that's available to pay out to the mentors. So that's all an administrative rule as well. So there's very specific and prescriptive parameters around those things. So it's been around for a long time. Has it been funded through the state with the same fidelity? No.
Thank you.
Yep.
Representative Yang Rohr?
Yeah,
please.
thank you. The testimony from our two witnesses were very helpful. It's always good to hear those individual stories. I'm wondering, maybe Allison, if you could provide at the program level, what kind of success metrics you're looking at, and maybe to give us a sense for if this program is not here, what are we giving up?
Sure. I can get you more of those in detail following the committee. I guess what I have today is more anecdotal. I think what you just heard as well, that it's nice to have a confidant, someone that you can rely on that's going to always answer your call, who has been through the same position that you are now in for the first time, that you can ask questions of, an unbiased individual that you can call upon that maybe, and not to say that somebody from your district is biased, but they're certainly coming with a little bit more touch points in that local community than you might want to have as your person to kind of bounce ideas off of. Excuse me. I'm sorry. What was the second part of your question, Representative?
I was really just wondering how you are measuring the outcomes for the program.
Yeah, I will get that for you. The other thing I would note too is that we have seen, in the absence of funding, IPA also provides a mentoring program as a fee for service. So, but as you can imagine, it's the districts that can afford to do that might invest in that for their staff, but those that do not or cannot afford it don't.
Okay, and I think that was maybe my follow-up question. Without funding, does the program just go away?
Not necessarily. I mean, like I said, as an association, we do provide that to members and non-members alike, but it is fee for service. So again, so districts would be paying for that themselves. Whereas if we had that $1.2 million, we could afford to provide that service free of charge for up to 400 statewide principals in the first year.
Were all 400 slots being used?
I will have to check on that for sure.
Okay, thank you.
I'll get back to you.
Great, thank you very much. Assuming there are no more questions, Allison, thank you very much. Principal Solis and Principal Smith, thank you very much for joining us today as well. Thank you. And moving on to our last panel, representatives from Teach for America. Thank you all for being here today. Whatever order you choose, just introduce yourself and then provide your testimony. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Chanel Bell, and I'm the Vice President of External Affairs at Teach for America in Illinois, and I am a proud alumna of the program. I would like to express TFA's gratitude to this committee for approving us for $2 million for the past 3 years. This year, we're asking for the state's support at a flat budget amount of $2 million, an amount that both ISB and the governor has recommended for us. Joining me today is Jasmine Rosales Montas, Managing Director of Public Affairs, and 2 alumni of our program, Stacy Pequeño and Unica Spalding. Teach for America is a teacher preparation and leadership development program committed to ensuring that every child has access to an excellent education, starting with access to strong and well-prepared educators. For 26 years in Illinois, we've played our part to help strengthen the educator pipeline by recruiting, preparing, and retaining high-impact teachers to serve in the communities where they are needed the most. Our educators have taught generations of students across the state, demonstrating both deep roots and long-term commitment to Illinois communities. This year, your investment has helped us grow our course size by 23%. With 96 first-year and 73 second-year teachers with a total of 169 teachers, serving nearly 8,000 students. The urgency of this work has never been greater. Fewer candidates are entering the profession and more educators are exiting it. And schools are navigating compounding challenges such as chronic absenteeism and rapid developments in artificial intelligence, which is reshaping what students need to know and be able to do. How we prepare and train our teachers now will directly determine whether our students are prepared to thrive in this rapidly changing world. That is why we intentionally align our efforts to the areas of greatest need through a needs-based placement strategy. 100% of our teachers are placed in schools where at least 80% of the students qualify for free or reduced price lunch. Additionally, 88% of our core members are placed in the roles that are hardest to staff, including special education, early childhood, bilingual education, and secondary STEM. Positions that are critical to ensuring that our students have access to opportunity and that they're prepared with the skills that they will need in their futures. To build a sustainable solution, Teach for America plays our part to address the needs of the state by a distinct dual strategy: recruiting and developing high-impact teachers who otherwise would not have entered the field of education, while simultaneously strengthening, retaining, and amplifying the impact of our alumni who continue to serve in classrooms. Our recruitment strategy is grounded in data on student outcomes and teacher retention. Research shows that educators who return to teach in their home communities have a deeper, longer-lasting impact on students, and they're more likely to stay. With that evidence in mind, we've refined our approach to meet the state's evolving needs by placing a stronger focus on homegrown talent. As a result, 53% of our teachers this year are from Illinois. To bring this work to life, I'd like to introduce one of our alumni, Stacy Pequeno. Stacy began her career in Chicago and then went on to serve in Round Lake Area Schools, District 116, for 7 years, teaching special education in a high-needs setting. Stacy represents what is possible when educators are well prepared and supported and are able to build long-term careers in the communities in which they serve. Stacy?
Good afternoon. My name is Stacy Pequeno, and I have been an educator for 12 years. I come from a family of educators. My mom was a paraprofessional, and school was always a safe place for me, even though learning was hard. I had a learning disability, and I remember crying over math, convinced that I wasn't smart enough until one teacher refused to give up on me. That moment changed my life and shaped why I became an educator. My path into teaching wasn't linear. I graduated from Loyola University without certification, struggling to pass a required exam. I had the heart to teach, but not the support. Teach for America supported me to pass the required exam, placed me in a classroom, guided me through a master's program, and finally helped me earn my licensure, giving me the tools to succeed and remain in the classroom. In my first classroom in Chicago, many of my students were new to the country and didn't speak English. They were terrified. And honestly, so was I. Together, we learned to read menus, practice ordering food, and even turn the gym into a food stand so students could practice speaking English in a safe space. By the end of the year, those same students stood up and gave thank you speeches in English, not because they were required to, but because they wanted to show me that they could. That was the moment I knew education would be my life's work. After getting married, I moved to Round Lake Area Schools, District 116, where I spent 7 incredible years as a special education teacher. One of my proudest moments was working with a student named Juan. We first connected when he was in 1st grade. He excelled in math, but struggled with reading and was considered a non-reader. In our classroom, we built a community where it was safe to struggle. Using reading interventions like songs with movement, read-alouds, hands-on word work, and repeated practice, Juan began to make progress. During frustrating moments, we relied on our classroom motto, I am smart, I can do anything, I am safe. I also partnered closely with Juan's family, sending home recorded readings and texts so he could practice with his mom. His confidence and skills grew quickly. By the end of 1st grade, he was reading at a level G, 7 levels above where he started, going from not being able to read anything at all independently to now reading short books. Teach for America helped me become a teacher and has remained committed to helping me grow. This year, I moved to Woodstock, where I now teach English, and I'm applying to be a teacher coach so that I can also support other educators in my building the same way TFA has supported me. I respectfully ask for the committee's support of Teach for America's $2 million request so that more teachers can receive the preparation and support that has made such a difference in my journey and in the lives of my students. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy, for the work that you do every day for your students and their families. Our specific area of expertise is working with seniors in college and career changers who already have obtained their bachelor's degree. Once accepted into the program, our members begin their journey to earn their master's in education. Our teachers participate in an intensive summer training program where they build and practice core instructional skills in a real classroom setting, guided and coached by an experienced educator. We then offer exam support so that our teachers obtain their educator license before the first day of school. As teachers step into the classroom, our staff regularly observe instruction and provide ongoing, content-aligned, and pedagogical support focused on improving academic outcomes for students. Beyond measuring impact and based on student academic data aligned to nationally normed assessments, we have focused on building conditions that support consistent implementation and long-term student growth. We do this by using 2 additional research-based tools, Class and Cultivate. CLASS is a well-established tool that measures the quality of student and teacher interactions across 3 areas: emotional support, classroom organization, and instructional support. More than 200 studies have shown that stronger performances in these areas are linked to higher academic achievement and improved student well-being. We also use Cultivate, developed by the University of Chicago, which gathers direct feedback from students grade 5 through 12 about their classroom experience, such as how engaged they feel, how clearly content is explained, and whether they feel supported. This feedback is then translated into clear, actionable insights that help teachers strengthen their practice in real time. Together, these tools allow us to move beyond simply measuring results to understanding what is driving them. This means that we can focus our support where there will be the greatest impact and ensure that investments in our teaching are leading to meaningful and measurable gains for students. Our alumni make a lifelong commitment to education, and we make a lifelong investment in them by providing fellowship opportunities, content-specific support, and various scholarships so that they can see career longevity in the field of education. As you have heard from Stacy, and as you will soon hear from Unica, although our teachers may begin their journey in Chicago and in North Chicago, they go on and teach in school and in classrooms and lead schools and districts all across the state. Our members are serving students and driving systemic change across 85 cities in Illinois, cities like Quincy, Marshall, and Marion. In fact, our alumni initiatives are a central part of our retention strategy and underscore our commitment to fostering a robust educational ecosystem where alumni continue to grow as transformative leaders in their communities, strengthening schools and positively impacting the broader system over time. Next, I want to introduce you to Unica Spalding, who has a clear example of how TFA's development programs have helped her build the capacity of other educators at the Barack Obama Learning Center in Hazel Crest, Illinois. I will pass it on to her for her to share more about her story. Unica?
Good afternoon. My name is Unica Spalding, and I have been an educator for 6 years. I am a proud Black woman born and raised on the south side of Chicago, where I currently live today. My grandmother has always been my greatest inspiration, instilling in me the values of faith, perseverance, and serving others. I am proud to continue her legacy she began. As a mother of 3 children, I am personally and professionally committed to uplifting the communities I work in. After completing my degree, I started working at a school that partnered me with TFA, and I chose to join the program. Teach for America didn't just place me in a classroom, it gave me a pathway to become the educator my students needed. Through TFA, I earned my licensure, completed my master's, and developed the skills to stay and lead in the classroom long term. After 5 years in that role, I chose to take my talents to the Barack Obama Learning Center in Hazel Crest, Illinois, where I have been teaching social studies for the last year. One of my most significant professional accomplishments has been leading an iReady initiative that brought together teachers across 3 grade levels and impacted nearly 300 students. As a comprehensive online K-8 online program for math and reading, iReady combines adaptive diagnostic assessments with personalized instruction to help teachers identify student needs, monitor progress, and deliver targeted lessons that drive academic growth. When I launched the initiative in December 2025, student engagement was low and academic progress has been stalled. By building a data-driven culture and creating accountability across grade levels, we increased iReady lessons completion by 300% in just 3 months, impacting nearly 300 students and driving measurable academic growth. After 6 years in the classroom, I'm now leading adults in my building, an opportunity made possible by the foundation Teach for America helped me build. This year, as a participant in the Aspire Fellowship Teach for America's alumni program in partnership with the University of Illinois Chicago ED program, I am collaborating with my school leader to design and implement a school-wide initiative aimed at improving student outcomes. This experience has sharpened my leadership skills, helped me build the capacity of other educators in my building, and deepened my commitment to student success. I understand the power of strong schools and strong educators. My journey from first-generation college graduate to teacher leader has been driven by the belief that our students deserve excellence and opportunity. I respectfully ask for your support of Teach for America's $2 million request so that more students across Illinois can learn from well-prepared, committed educators, and so that more leaders like me can stay, grow, and continue serving our committees and our communities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Unica, for all that you do for your students and your peers. Unica's and Stacy's stories are just a few examples of the incredible work that our alumni are doing across Illinois. In the last 3 years, the Illinois State Board of Education has honored 13 of our alumni through their prestigious Those Who Excel and Teacher of the Year awards, a testament of our members' dedication and impact. Collectively, these 13 outstanding educators have devoted 125 years to transforming lives through education. Your $2 million investment is vital to the continuation of our successful program and our proven track record of positive impact in the schools in which our teachers and our alumni serve. We recognize the significant challenges facing this current budget and the difficult decisions required in allocating limited resources. We are deeply grateful for your time, your consideration, and your commitment to investing in students and the educators who serve them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from members? Actually, I did have a question. So you consider your program to be a help in addressing the teacher shortage issue, correct?
Correct.
So ISB, as you probably heard, testified that they are making strides through their efforts in addressing teacher shortage. So what differentiates what you're doing from what they're doing?
Well, we're a partner with ISB. So, you know, there's a pressing need for more educators in Illinois. And the reality is that there's no one organization or one effort that is going to actually meet the demands of the state. We are going to have to work in collaboration across organizations, across departments to really fill that need. What Teach for America brings is 35 years of experience nationally and 26 years locally of a model that has been proven not just effective, but enduring. And our decades of data shows that it works and that our teachers are able to really have meaningful impact with our students.
I might be asking a slightly different question, but okay. let me just then ask this. So when they report their numbers, do their numbers include your numbers, or are your numbers separate from their numbers?
Our numbers should be included.
They are included.
Yes, because our teachers are Illinois teachers.
Well, so I want to be certain if we're talking about two different things, because they have kind of taken those teacher shortage type programs, I'll call it that, and decided to kind of bring them in-house so they could administer those programs. That's why I wondered if they're differentiating what they do versus what you do. But you say they're all the same numbers at the end of the day.
Well, there are specific initiatives that people are doing, like ISB is doing, and then there's other teacher preparation programs that are also doing this work. We are one of many, and the numbers of the teachers that are counted by ISB include our teachers because our teachers are Illinois teachers.
Okay, so they included your program in their introduced budget, correct?
Correct.
Were you in the governor's introduced budget?
Yes, both ISB and the governor has recommended us for the $2 million that we are here requesting from you.
Okay, in past, if I'm not mistaken, your program took state money and then leveraged additional money. Do you still do that?
Yes.
And what does that look like?
Yes, so Historically, when we are able to receive $2 million from the state, we have historically been able to raise about $6 million of private philanthropy. Every dollar that we get from the state goes to recruitment, placement, development, and retaining of our teachers. And then we're able to leverage state dollars to secure philanthropic support.
If I remember correctly, also, a number of your participants were in Chicago. And I think one of the challenges one thing that came out in that we wondered how you would do more of this statewide. So what does that look like now?
So our program, we place our core members in Chicago and in North Chicago for to do their initial training in their 2-year program. But then our alumni are often going across the state to different cities. We're actually in 85 cities right now where our alumni are serving as teachers and school leaders. And we are supporting our alumni through our program, through the funds that we get from the state as well. That's an essential part of our program.
So how many are teachers and how many are school leaders?
Yeah, so we have 245 of our alumni are school leaders, which includes principals, assistant principals, deans, and coaches, and 645 are teachers.
I would also like to add Jasmine Rosales Montas, Managing Director, Public Affairs with Teach for America. We also included a one-pager in all of your folders. On the second page of that is a list of those 85 cities, as well as a map that will show you all of the cities across the state of Illinois that our alumni are in.
Okay, so your program, when they come out of your program, they're considered an alumni, and then that's when they're placed in these various spaces, correct?
Yeah, that's when they often go and migrate to other areas in the state.
Okay. Then any additional questions from members? Okay, seeing none, thank you all very much for your time. Thank you for your patience today, and we appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much, Rep. Davis.
Thank you.
Thank you to the committee.
All right. Seeing no further business in front of the Appropriations Committee for Elementary and Secondary Education, the committee shall be recessed to the call of the chair. Thank you.